Welcome back to another episode of Real Talking ELT. I am here very quickly to talk about the importance of integrating culture into language classes. Okay, so recently I had this crazy little idea. It was like a few weeks ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm just so stupid by myself. I wish some of you could see me just cooking up little ideas here in my home office. Okay, so obviously I'm American, right? I got my flag that my husband made for me, and it's beautiful, and everybody was just like, Kelly's the American. And it's fun because, yeah, that's just my personality. This is the only thing that I've known. Like, I grew up in the US, like, sorry. But that's my culture, and that's what I can contribute to classes. And a lot of times I think that we don't include enough cultural aspects, or at least investigation of cultural aspects. Like, we focus so much on grammar and we focus so much on vocabulary, and it's like, did you say that right, and get the red pen out and stuff like that. And I think that students are just genuinely, when they don't have very specific goals. I'm talking about people that are just like learning the language, and they don't have anything immediate that they need to attend to. So they're chilling, they're going through, they've got the course, and they're all right. Those people, I think, would benefit very much. Not that other people wouldn't, but integrating culture, I think, would depend on their specific language goals and objectives. But I'm talking about like just general classes that you're having with people. Most of the time, I think that they're going to really, really benefit from having cultural investigations, because I am just this disaster of a person. I'm very peculiar. Not peculiar. I am a little, to be honest, I'm a little odd. A little bit, I'm an odd duck. I have very I don't know, just weird tendencies, I guess. So I like certain things. I I talk a certain way because of where I was born and raised. I see things happening through a specific lens because of all of the experiences I've had just as a human, just general human. I'm talking general human now. And because of that, I think that language is very much influenced by culture that has gone generation to generation. So let me get to the point here. So Americans, a lot of times, get a bad rap. And listen, Americans are a funny little mix of people. I think all cultures have their kind of funny little mixes. I've been living in Brazil for a couple decades now, and it's just the Brazilians also have a funny little mix of different types of people, and the Americans do too. Americans are just loud, and the tourists are not super great when it comes to American tourists, or sometimes given the rest of the country a bad name. But no, but Americans are just kind of this weird melting pot. I grew up in Massachusetts, which definitely melting pot there, which just is interesting regional characters. And yeah. So what I decided a few weeks ago was, because I find culture to be very colorful, and I find it to be fun, and I love seeing like little things here in Brazil. I loved seeing it in the US too, and it's just I find myself to be a tourist wherever I go. Even when I go back to the US, my people are like, she must be a tourist. And it's like, no, I'm from here. I just find all of these little festivals and shops and towns and dives and bars and all of those things. I just find them to be just quirky and interesting and very representative of the people that frequent them. How does this relate to any sort of language teaching? Because if you look at where people come from, and I know that people are like, we don't want to maintain tradition. Listen, you don't have to maintain traditions. It's fine. You can buck the system if you want to. But I'm saying is that the way that people represent themselves linguistically, the way that people view things and choose to describe scenarios or use certain phrases or vocabulary, vernacular because of where they've come from. It's all, generational. Like we come from a certain lineage, I guess we can say. And so I got this crazy little idea of like, well, people usually think Americans are like represented by the craziness on social media, but also like when they go to Orlando, when they go to New York, when they go to California and Las Vegas, those are like the four places. Like if you're a tourist, I mean, at least from South America, Latin America, those are the four places that people are going. Um, and it's just like, no, like that's a weird scenario that happens in the US because so many tourists go there. But you got to go to all different parts of the US to really understand, like, oh, this is Americans have a certain mindset. They say certain things. I'm focusing on America, people, because that's what I know. That's what I can contribute. I cannot contribute anything else because I grew up there. I came here as a transplant in my, mid 20s, but I didn't grow up with this culture, the Brazilian culture. So I can't really like talk about it in any, I don't know, way that's substantial. So, but what I can offer is I can offer America. And so I decided to put a few different series on my social media. So the first one is highlighting states, because typically people go to like 4 states in the US and that's it. Like tourists, that's it. They just go to it's like Florida, New York, California. Like that's it. Like it's just so bizarre for me. It's like, that there's a whole other country outside of that, right? Like and sometimes places outside of those 4 places that you guys keep visiting are way better. Anyways, okay, so states are going to be there. Also, festivals, because Americans have some awesome festivals. I really wish that instead of going to Disneyland, which is boring and played out in my book, for kids it's fine, but like if you're an adult, like why are you going to Disney? Like let's find a different place. I don't know. That's just me. There's some festivals that are super cool. So there's a suggestion. Try a festival instead. Maybe, like spend half of your trip at the touristy places and then like go see like what quote unquote real America is like. Then national parks, because I would much rather spend a long weekend in a national park with my family than be in some overcrowded, overpriced, fast food ridden amusement park that you have to wait hours to get onto a 30-second ride. That's just me, because like national parks are amazing. They're beautiful. The cities that are near them are like touristy enough, but they're still kind of, homegrown type of people and just, good food. And I would just much prefer to go to a national park. So there's another option. And also, for you to get a little insight into sometimes like why Americans say the things that they say. There's 2 other things that I put up there. One of them is most about like recent history and recent events and how they kind of affect the way that people talk about things, whether it be the actual vocabulary or how it's kind of modifying our language and maybe even including new language. But the other one is about history, like history of the US too, like with a US perspective, because I think sometimes if you understand where people come from, it makes a lot more sense about why they do the things they do, why they say the things that they do, why they choose to respond or react in the way that they do. And I think that is a good thing, so that you can not immediately take offense to things, but kind of understand like, oh, okay, well, they see the world this way. They use this type of language to describe these types of scenarios. And so it's not jarring or offensive, or it's not, it's just, that's That's how they do things in certain areas. Like, that's it. I'll give you the perfect example. When I came here and whenever I left, I was like really how do I say this? It didn't give me anxiety, but it was just like, oh God, this is like a lot. It was intense for me. I guess I can say that it was intense for me that God was everywhere in Brazil. Like on every corner, there's a church. Legit, every corner, there's a church. And every time I left a place, I was told to go with God. Every time people were unsure about the future, it was always, if God wants. I mean, obviously in Portuguese, right? If anything good happened, it was thank God. And there was just a lot of God. Just a lot of God. And for me, when I came here, language wise, it was just like Deus, Deus, like God, God, God all the time. And I was like, but it's not because anybody's necessarily overly religious. It's just like the way that people express. There's these phrases that have maintained over centuries that people just continue to use on a day-to-day basis, and it's totally acceptable, and it's not anything related to religion necessarily, and it's just a lot. For me, initially, it was intense. And then I started to understand, like, okay, well, I came more from like a Protestant-based culture. This is more Catholic-based culture, though we have the Bible Belt and stuff like that. Okay, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, I had to understand, like, culturally, like, this is acceptable for people just to say God all the time. And in the U.S., though, at least where I was living, that was not as present. And fun fact, my grandma was almost a nun, so she was like super religious. And there was less God talk there than here. So wrapping this up, the reason that I wanted to include all of these things about culture and blah 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 is because I think it's important for people to look at, like, language teachers specifically, look at the linguistic implications of some of the cultural things that happen and why people use certain language, why they describe things in certain ways, if the connotations of certain words or certain phrases have differences in the student's first language as opposed to in English, and just kind of preparing them, because cultures are different. They don't have to clash. Sometimes they do. They don't have to, though. And so the only thing that I can offer, again, is the United States, because that's what I know. I don't even know all of the states, but I know a lot of the states, but I can offer the United States. I can offer a glimpse into things that have been a part of my experiences, my life experiences. And I think it would be interesting to start using those, and perhaps for people to use other things to create a conversation. Why not? Why not? And maybe it'll help people express themselves a little bit better and communicate better, as opposed to having these miscommunications or maybe perceived clashing of cultures. And like, let's just try and understand where people are coming from. So that's why they express themselves a certain way. And if that's different from the way that you express yourself, it's fine. But, let's kind of bring it all together, people. So if you start seeing a lot of stuff about the United States on my social media, that is why. But I hope you enjoy. I did try to give some suggestions on what you could do with those things, with those facts and information. And that's it. See you later.